On Monday, July 25th, Governor John P. DeYoung Jr. was interviewed by News 2 on the state of the territory's finances and the economic outlook for the Virgin Islands through the fiscal year 2012. In a diverse interview with News 2 News Director Natafa Romain, the governor addressed the issue of the 8% pay cut government workers are experiencing, the savings to be realized by the salary cut, the anticipated deficit in fiscal year 2012, the circumstances by which the salary cut option was arrived at through negotiations of the 29th legislature, recent court filings against the government over the pay reduction to public sector workers, and the options available to the governor if the court rules against the government. During the interview, the governor spoke candidly about the effects of the global recession on the territory's revenues and the carefully choreographed steps taken by his administration over the last 2 years to head off termination of employees and implementation of pay cuts through borrowing, at a time when all other states and territories of the United States either laid off workers, cut services and programs, or closed schools as a result of the effects of the global recession.
Lisa, this week we're going to see an 8% cut with folks' salary going across the board in government. Right. So first off, explain the Economic Stability Act and what it will mean in the short term for the Virgin Islands.
This payday will have a tremendous impact across all of government. I think it'll take away a tremendous anxiety that people have had for a very long time. And the attempt here more than anything is to try to maintain the level of expenditures in government. And I recognize, and I think the legislature recognizes, the tremendous impact this is going to have on individuals and on families. But what we're experiencing in the Virgin Islands is no different than what folks are experiencing, other territories are experiencing, and particularly the United States, with the layoffs from teachers, police officers, healthcare workers. And so, while the legislature and I had a basic difference at one point, we sort of met in a compromise. And that compromise was that we would try to see if we could achieve the budgetary savings in fiscal year 11 that was required so that we could at least maintain some level of cash resources and continue to run the government. And so the Economic Stabilization Act was that attempt to, one, reduce our expenses, and the 8% will achieve at least a budgetary savings of $8 million in fiscal year 11 up to September 30th, and an estimated 30-something in fiscal year 12, so that we can reduce what was an estimated $90 million shortfall altogether. But the important part of the Stabilization Act is that it's a way to match our expenditures with our revenues. And the fact is that given the economic climate of what's happened since 2008 all the way through, the revenues that are coming into the government, the resources we have reduced tremendously. And what we've tried to do over that period of time is to try to maintain government services, both in terms of employment, but also in terms of programs for our children, for the health care, just across the board. And in addition to the salary cut, the Stabilization Act has an incentive, and that incentive is for the retirement of those employees that have been in government 29 years and longer, to see what we can do to encourage them to go into retirement, and therefore we can achieve those savings at the same time.
You were extremely critical of the Senate's inaction going into this process. Are you pleased with the outcome thus far?
Well, I think we've exhibited a tremendous amount of creativity. I mean, we have gone since 2007, the latter half of 2007 to 9, without any massive layoffs or reductions of government workers. And the reason we're in this position now is we can no longer borrow, and a number of projects, a number of initiatives that we thought would take hold have not taken hold. I disagreed with the legislature ultimately in the beginning because I thought that they weren't addressing the situation. I have met over 4 times with the unions at various times at Government House. I've invited them to come. We've opened up the books completely to them so they could take a look at it. I've even had their financial advisors that they asked me to meet with, sit down, take a look at the books and take a look at our information, ask us questions to see what they could give us in terms of their recommendations. We've met with the legislature over 15 times, explaining to them, both in terms of meetings at Government House, but also on the Senate floor, exactly what is necessary. I think this is just one piece. We can't get away from the fact that revenue generation and building the economy in the long haul is really going to be what'll really take us out of this situation. But in the short term, at least for now, in the early part of 2012, is try to maintain expenses. Because I don't see the U.S. economy rebounding, and particularly with the debt talks that are taking place at a national level, there's a certain amount of uncertainty, and that uncertainty clearly translates to our economy. So we've got to figure out a way to maintain expenses and at the same time at least set the foundation for growth. And I think this 8% gives us an opportunity to get there. If it doesn't, if by chance the court makes a different decision as a result of what the unions have filed, or if we don't achieve the savings, then we'll have to look at other measures, and those measures can go across the board from dismissals to layoffs.